Success doesn't happen by accident. It doesn't show up because you want it, because you dream about it, or because you hope you're lucky enough to stumble across it. Success is created, it's built, it's earned, and not through one magical moment or a single breakthrough, but through a series of decisions, disciplines, and deep internal shifts. Most people spend their lives chasing the surface, more money, more status, more admiration, but they never stop to ask what success really requires. Not the quick fixes, not the temporary highs, but the principles, the foundations, the kind of truth that reshapes the way you think, the way you act, the way you lead yourself every day. Because until you change the way you think, you won't change the way you move. Until you change the way you see yourself, you won't change what you believe is possible. Until you change what you expect from your life, you'll keep tolerating less than you're capable of. Success is not a strategy, it's a mindset. And mindset isn't just how you feel when things are going well, it's how you operate when they're not. You can read every book, you can take every class, but until you embody the kind of thinking that supports sustained success, none of it sticks. You'll stay on the roller coaster, up when things are smooth, down when life throws pressure. But real success isn't built on perfect conditions. It's built on unshakable foundations, and those foundations start inside. This is why so many talented people never break through. They've got the skill, the vision, the work ethic, but they lack the core lessons that anchor everything else. They lack the internal framework that separates high achievers from everyone else. Because success isn't about trying harder, it's about knowing better. And the people who know these lessons don't need to be reminded to succeed. They do it automatically. The moment these truths click, everything starts to shift. The excuses get quieter. The clarity gets sharper. The fear loses its grip. You stop relying on motivation and start building momentum. You stop trying to survive and start leading yourself forward. You stop reacting and start choosing. And the power of these lessons is not in how inspiring they sound. It's in how deeply they work. They don't hype you up for 5 minutes. They hold you accountable for the next decade. They confront your thinking. They reset your standards. They require something from you. And in doing that, they give you access to everything you've been trying to reach. But these lessons don't come easily. They don't show up without friction. You have to be willing to unlearn. You have to be willing to confront the patterns you've built around comfort. You have to be willing to replace your excuses with discipline. You have to be willing to stop hoping and start building. Because once you understand these lessons, you don't go back. You don't shrink to fit old circles. You don't lower your goals to match your old habits. You don't play small just to keep the peace. You rise, you change, you grow, not once, but continuously. These are not just 5 ideas. These are 5 lenses. 5 principles that will challenge your assumptions, break your patterns, and reconstruct your approach to everything that matters. They are not for the crowd that wants it easy. They're for the person who is ready to take responsibility for their own future. The person who's done waiting. The person who's ready now. The first life-altering lesson to achieve ultimate success is this. Your standards determine your outcome, not your goals, not your dreams, not your intentions. Your standards. Because no matter what you say you want, you will always fall to the level of what you tolerate. It doesn't matter how ambitious your vision is if your daily behavior is still rooted in the habits of who you used to be. It doesn't matter how clearly you define your success if you still accept the excuses, distractions, and environments that pull you back to comfort. You rise to your standards or you fall to them. but you never outperform them. Your standards are revealed in what you allow, in the way you speak about your goals, in the way you respond to discomfort, in the time you wake up, the way you follow through, the effort you give when nobody is watching. They are not goals you aim for. They are the lines you refuse to cross, the bare minimum that becomes your new normal. People often mistake ambition for identity. They think because they want to succeed, they are the kind of person who will. But desire without discipline creates disappointment. And discipline without high standards creates stagnation. Your discipline must be anchored to something meaningful, and that something is the standard you set for your life. High standards are uncomfortable. They force you to become consistent before you feel like it. They require action on days you're tired, clarity when things are noisy, and decisiveness when fear is screaming. And that's exactly why they change you, because when you raise your standard, you raise your identity. And when you raise your identity, you change your results. This isn't about perfection. It's about intention. It's about waking up every day and deciding that who you were is no longer the reference point, that the excuses you used to make are no longer valid, that the patterns you used to fall into are no longer welcome, that the life you want is built by who you are becoming, not who you used to be. You do not get the life you want. You get the life you are willing to tolerate, the life your behavior aligns with, the life your standard protects. So if your current life is not what you envision, check your standard. Check what you've been tolerating. Check what you've allowed to become normal. Standards are not built on what feels good. They're built on what is required. And success requires more than effort. It requires consistency. It requires intentionality. It requires that you show up when no one's clapping, that you finish when no one's watching, that you correct your drift before it becomes a detour. You'll know your standard has changed when you no longer need motivation to act, when the old excuses no longer feel natural, when skipping your morning routine doesn't feel like rest, it feels like regression, when saying I'll do it later feels like betrayal instead of relief. That's when you've built a new floor. That's when your baseline has shifted. And once your baseline shifts, everything else follows. Your confidence grows, not because you feel better, but because you know you follow through. Your clarity sharpens, not because life got easier, but because you stop negotiating with your distractions. Your energy increases, not because you're doing less, but because your actions are now aligned with your mission. This shift will feel foreign at first. Your environment may not understand. Your old circle may not approve. They'll ask why you're suddenly taking things so seriously. They'll ask why you're saying no more often, why you're choosing discipline over downtime. That's when you'll realize you've stepped into a new identity, and the old version of you doesn't need to explain. Because you've decided that average is not your benchmark, that good enough is not your goal, that being liked is not your priority. You've decided that your potential matters more than your comfort, that your commitment is stronger than your mood, that your standard is now the leader and your feelings follow. This decision won't just change your routine. It will change your language. You'll stop saying, I hope. You'll stop saying, maybe. You'll stop waiting for alignment. You'll act in alignment. You'll walk into rooms differently. You'll carry yourself with authority, not because you're better than anyone else, but because you are now in integrity with yourself. That's where real power comes from. Integrity, not performance, not perfection, not trying to prove something, but from knowing that you hold yourself to a level that requires no applause, that the bar you live by doesn't shift with convenience, that you do the work because you said you would, because that's who you are now. And once that's true, success isn't a matter of if, it's a matter of when. Because the person who holds high standards and lives in alignment with them doesn't need perfect conditions to grow. They don't wait for the right opportunity. They create it. They attract it. They sustain it because they've done the work where it counts on the inside. You are always training the world how to treat you based on how you treat yourself. And when your standard is low, your energy follows. Your environment reflects it. Your results mirror it. But when your standard is high, the opposite happens. You attract different conversations, different people, different outcomes, because you're moving with intention, with clarity, with force. You don't need to scream it. You don't need to convince anyone. Just live it. Let your discipline speak. Let your consistency build evidence. Let your results speak for themselves. Because the people who live with real standards don't need to be loud. Their lives are loud enough. You've heard it before. Raise your standards. But now you understand what that actually means. It means no more compromising with your excuses. No more giving away your time to distractions. No more keeping the peace with habits that keep you small. It means choosing alignment over comfort, integrity over ease, growth over approval. And if you truly live this lesson, everything else becomes possible. Because when your standards rise, your life follows. Not overnight, but inevitably. The second life-altering lesson to achieve ultimate success is this: your environment shapes your future more than your intentions do. It doesn't matter how committed you feel, how ambitious you are, or how big your goals are. If you are surrounded by the wrong energy, the wrong people, the wrong conversations, you will not win. Not long-term, not consistently, not sustainably. Environment isn't just who's around you. It's what you're exposed to, what you hear, what you absorb, what becomes normal. And success is not created in isolation. It's created through association. You become like the people you surround yourself with. You absorb their energy, their beliefs, their habits, their standards. And most people never reach their full potential because they never leave the rooms that keep them small. If you're surrounded by people who tolerate excuses, you'll make more of them. If your circle normalizes quitting, you'll justify giving up. If your conversations revolve around distraction, drama, and gossip, you'll begin to forget what clarity feels like. And if you're in an environment that fears success more than failure, you'll start shrinking your vision just to make people comfortable. The truth is, you cannot grow where you are constantly validated for your limitations. You cannot rise in an environment where progress is questioned and ambition is mocked. You cannot become the highest version of yourself in a room that requires you to stay average in order to be accepted. And yet, most people stay in those rooms, not because they want to, but because they're afraid to leave. They fear rejection. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being alone. But loneliness is not the enemy. Misalignment is. Staying in a place that no longer reflects where you're going is more dangerous than walking alone for a season to build the life you want. You need to get around people who expect more, who aren't impressed by your potential, but challenged by it, who won't let you off the hook when you say something average, who will look you in the eye and ask, is that really your best? Who will hold you to the standard you said mattered long after the motivation fades? This kind of environment doesn't always feel good, but it makes you better because growth is forged in pressure. Pressure to think sharper, pressure to move with clarity, pressure to live in integrity. And that pressure doesn't come from crowds that prioritize comfort. It comes from communities that prioritize excellence. You'll know when you're in the right environment. You'll feel it in the conversations. They'll stretch you. They'll challenge your perspective. They'll make you rethink your language. You'll stop complaining because no one around you entertains it. You'll stop playing small because it feels out of place. You'll stop hiding because you're now surrounded by people who walk in truth, and truth exposes anything false. That kind of environment elevates you by default. You don't have to try harder to stay focused. You're surrounded by focus. You don't have to fight for consistency. You're immersed in it. You don't have to chase clarity. It shows up in every conversation, every standard, every habit. And you begin to realize that the problem was never a lack of ability. It was a lack of alignment. Your mind wanted growth, but your environment rewarded comfort. Your goals were big, but the energy around you was small. Your identity was ready to expand, but your surroundings forced it to shrink. That misalignment creates burnout. It creates confusion. You feel like you're fighting yourself, but you're not. You're fighting your environment, trying to grow inside a container that was never built to hold your next level. And the longer you stay, the more frustrated you become. Not because you're broken, but because you know you're capable of more. So you choose something different, not out of ego, but out of truth. Not to prove something, but to honor something. You honor your future by creating space for it. You honor your potential by getting around people who refuse to let it go to waste. You honor your growth by stepping out of rooms that shrink you and into rooms that sharpen you. That transition will be painful. It will require difficult conversations. It will reveal who is really for you and who is just familiar. But it will also create freedom. Freedom to rise. Freedom to lead. Freedom to speak truth without fear of being judged for dreaming too big. And eventually, you'll begin to build your own environment. One conversation at a time. One standard at a time. One aligned relationship at a time. And that environment won't be perfect, but it will be real. And real is where you build from. Real is where you find strength. Real is where transformation lasts. You don't need a crowd. You need alignment. You don't need applause. You need accountability. You don't need endless options. You need clear standards. And your environment will either enforce those standards or erode them. So be intentional. Audit the rooms you walk into. Question the energy you're exposed to. Challenge the conversations you keep returning to. Not every room is meant for your next season. Not every voice is meant to guide your path. And not every relationship is meant to last beyond your transformation. This is not about arrogance. This is about alignment. The higher you rise, the more important alignment becomes. Because you can't afford to waste energy explaining your goals to people who've never had one. You can't afford to keep making excuses for energy that drains you. You can't afford to lose focus every time the room shifts. Build the room you want to be in. Fill it with honesty, with consistency, with people who value growth more than validation, with people who have more questions than assumptions, with people who don't just talk about success, but live the kind of life that requires it. The third life-altering lesson to achieve ultimate success is this: you are always one decision away from a completely different life. Not one lucky break, not one perfect plan, not one flawless performance, one decision. And most people never make it, not because they can't, but because they keep waiting for clarity, for confidence, for guarantees. But success doesn't wait for certainty. It rewards action. It follows decisions. And the people who win long-term are the ones who stop overthinking and start deciding. The ones who stop playing out every worst-case scenario and start committing to the next best step. The ones who stop making the same excuses for why they're stuck and start making new choices that change the trajectory of their lives. You don't need to figure out the whole path. You just need to take the next step with clarity and conviction. Because clarity is not found in thought. It's created through movement. You gain insight by deciding. You find alignment by committing. You build confidence by following through. But you can't follow through on a decision you never made. And most people drift through life in indecision. They say they want more, but they don't choose it. They say they want change, but they don't make the cut. They talk about growth, but they leave back doors open. Options open, exit routes visible, and that's why nothing shifts. You cannot evolve while holding on to old options. You cannot reach your next level while clinging to your old patterns. You cannot build something new while protecting the pieces of the old life you're afraid to let go of. The decision must be complete. The cut must be clean. The commitment must be real. That kind of decision feels different. It carries weight. It changes your posture. It changes your behavior immediately. Not because the world changes, but because you do. Because something inside you clicks and you're no longer available for certain habits, certain conversations, certain excuses. You stop negotiating with fear. You stop postponing your future. You stop choosing familiarity over progress. You wake up and move like someone who has decided, who has chosen their future, who has stopped asking if they're ready, and started becoming someone who doesn't need permission to begin. That decision isn't just one moment. It's a repeated mindset, a standard you hold, a threshold you enforce, and you'll be tested. Life will challenge the sincerity of your decision. Discomfort will show up. Resistance will try to drag you back. People will question you. But if your decision is real, you won't fold. You'll adjust, but you won't retreat. Because when you've truly decided, quitting is no longer on the table. Backtracking is no longer a backup plan. You've deleted the alternatives, burned the fallback. You've said yes to the future so clearly that no version of the past has permission to stay. This kind of decision doesn't just move you forward. It frees you. It removes the internal weight of hesitation. It silences the noise of should I or shouldn't I. It eliminates the pull of procrastination. Because there's no question left. You've already decided. And that decision is now leading everything. You'll feel the difference in how you speak. Your language sharpens. The words maybe, later, hopefully begin to disappear. You replace them with I will, I'm doing, it's done. You sound different. You think different. And people around you can feel it, even if they can't explain it. That's how leaders are built. Not by waiting to be ready, but by choosing to be responsible. Not by chasing approval, but by committing to alignment. Not by over-planning, but by over-committing to the process. One decision at a time. You'll never feel fully ready. And if you wait until you do, you'll wait forever. Readiness is built by doing. Built by deciding. Built by walking forward with shaky legs and unfinished clarity. Because courage isn't the absence of fear. It's movement in the presence of it. And when you move like that, when you decide with conviction and follow it with action, You begin to unlock levels of yourself that hesitation kept hidden, strength you forgot you had, creativity you didn't know was possible, momentum that would have never existed if you hadn't made the leap. You don't become successful by waiting for everything to feel perfect. You become successful by deciding what matters most and building your life around that decision. Not your feelings, not your fear, your decision. And that decision isn't just about what you say yes to. It's about what you say no to. You say no to distractions, no to emotional spirals, no to conversations that pull you back, no to people who keep you looping in circles, no to habits that contradict your goals, no to patterns that make you question your value. One decision, one powerful, fully aligned, no going back decision. That's what creates the tipping point. That's what builds real success. Not fantasy, not theory, not ideas, action, clarity, commitment. The fourth life-altering lesson to achieve ultimate success is this: you don't get what you deserve. You get what you repeat. You can have the best mindset, the clearest goals, the most inspiring vision. But if your behavior is inconsistent, your results will be too. It's not about what you do occasionally. It's about what you do consistently. Repetition builds identity. Repetition builds results. Repetition builds power. You cannot grow your life on intention alone. You grow it by doing the right things over and over until they're no longer a strategy, but a part of who you are. Until you no longer have to think about showing up, you just do. Until excellence becomes the habit, not the exception. Most people live on motivation, and motivation is a liar. It will give you a spark today and abandon you tomorrow. It will hype you up in the morning and disappear by the afternoon. And if you build your life on how you feel, your growth will be as unstable as your emotions. That's why repetition matters more than motivation. Repetition rewires your brain. It retrains your habits. It builds the muscle of consistency. And consistency is what wins. Because the people who create real results aren't the ones who get it right once. They're the ones who get it right daily. You'll know you're growing when the things that used to feel hard now feel normal. When discipline becomes automatic. When what once required effort now feels like alignment. And that shift doesn't happen because you got better. It happens because you got consistent. Success is not about intensity, it's about frequency. Anyone can have a good day, a few good weeks, but real success is built on patterns, systems, structure, a lifestyle. You win because you keep showing up. You win because you keep refining. You win because you no longer need a reason to follow through. It's just who you are now. And this applies to everything. Your mindset, your health, your leadership, your relationships. The strongest people don't hope for excellence. They make it a habit. They've decided that certain behaviors are no longer optional. They've created structure around their goals. They don't leave their future to willpower. They build a rhythm that keeps them aligned. Repetition sharpens you. It makes your process more efficient. It teaches your body what success feels like. It clears mental clutter because your next step is already decided. You don't waste time debating. You don't get stuck in loops of doubt. You act. You execute. You refine. And that level of clarity doesn't just create better results. It creates better confidence. Not fake confidence, not ego, but real self-trust. Because every time you show up for yourself, you prove that your words mean something. That your habits are not random. They're chosen. That your life is not reactive. It's intentional. That's what consistency gives you. Control. And that control creates peace. Because now You're not hoping for the right conditions. You're creating them. You're not crossing your fingers that you'll be ready. You're staying ready. You're not wondering if you'll succeed. You're building a process that makes it inevitable. But here's the key. Consistency isn't just about doing more. It's about doing the right things repeatedly with focus. It's about identifying what matters and designing your life around it. It's about choosing a few powerful behaviors and doing them so often that they become second nature. Repetition doesn't mean boring. It means committed. It means you no longer need variety to stay engaged. You find meaning in mastery. You find purpose in progress. You don't need constant change to feel alive. You find momentum in repetition. And most people never get there because they confuse excitement with fulfillment. They chase novelty and abandon process. They get distracted by what's next and forget what works. But the people who win, they stay consistent even when it's not exciting, because they know success isn't a sprint, it's a rhythm. You have to choose your rhythm, choose your habits, choose what you'll do regardless of how you feel, what you'll do when no one's watching, what you'll do when it's inconvenient, what you'll do until it's not something you do, it's who you are. That's when transformation locks in. When your behavior no longer depends on inspiration, but on identity. When discipline becomes the path, not the punishment. When excellence becomes the expectation, not the exception. When momentum becomes the norm, not the anomaly. You don't get what you dream about. You get what you repeat. Your results are a reflection of your rhythm. Your success is a product of your consistency. And if you want to change your life, start with your patterns. Refine your inputs. Clean up your behavior. Build rituals that align with who you want to become. Because when your habits are aligned, your future is secured. When your repetition matches your vision, success becomes automatic. And when who you are matches how you live, you don't just hit goals. You create a life that keeps expanding. The fifth life-altering lesson to achieve ultimate success is this. You don't rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the strength of your systems. It's not enough to want more. It's not enough to dream big. If your life is built on random effort, emotional decision-making, and reactive behavior, you'll burn out before you break through. Everyone talks about vision. Everyone has ambition. But what separates those who actually achieve success is what happens behind the scenes. The structure, the system, the rhythm, the design of how they live. Because success isn't built on occasional effort. It's engineered through consistency. Most people fail not because they're lazy, but because their life has no framework, no process for execution, no structure for feedback, no calendar for discipline. They're driven by emotion, not principle. And emotion is a terrible manager. It's inconsistent. It's reactive. It can't be trusted to lead you to where you want to go. Systems remove emotion from the equation. They give you structure to fall back on when motivation fails. They give you habits that carry you when energy dips. They allow you to show up with clarity even when life gets messy. And when you stop building your life based on how you feel and start building it based on what you've chosen, you become unstoppable. The system is how you win. It's not glamorous. It's not loud. It's not exciting, but it works day in and day out, in the background, quietly, powerfully, relentlessly. Systems are boring, but success is found in boring, the repetition, the discipline, the refusal to drift. Your system is everything. It's your morning routine. It's your boundaries around time. It's the foods you eat, the people you listen to, the way you think, the way you track your behavior. It's not one big move. It's 1,000 small ones you've already decided in advance. Without a system, everything feels urgent. Everything feels emotional. One distraction can knock you off course. One conversation can derail your momentum. But with a system, your rhythm doesn't change. The structure protects your energy. The routine preserves your focus. The discipline simplifies your day. And here's the secret. Your system doesn't have to be complicated. It just has to be intentional, designed by you, for you, in alignment with your goals, based on your values, executed daily. It should feel simple. So simple, it's easy to underestimate. But those simple systems compound, they stack, they build something powerful. That's how high performers operate, not through willpower, but through systems, not through effort alone, but through structure. They don't just hope things go well. They design a life where things go well because they've removed the friction, because they've pre-decided the behavior, because they've removed choice from the equation. And once your life is structured around systems, your capacity expands. You stop wasting time. You stop draining energy. You stop carrying mental clutter. You free up space to think clearly, to create, to perform, to lead. Because your life is no longer a reaction, it's a strategy. And when life throws something unexpected at you, and it will, you don't collapse. You don't spiral. You don't lose weeks trying to get back on track. Because your system keeps you on track. You built something resilient, something that bends but doesn't break. Systems protect you from yourself, from your moods, from your weaknesses, from your past patterns. They reinforce who you're becoming. They support your new standard. They make the high-level version of you sustainable, not just inspirational. You've heard it before. If you don't schedule your values, your calendar will schedule your distractions. That's the truth. If your system isn't built, your day will be built for you. By urgency, by emotion, by other people's needs. But when you lead with structure, everything aligns. It's not about controlling every moment. It's about deciding what matters and creating space for it. About deciding what doesn't matter and removing it. About creating rituals that anchor you. About building in check-ins, feedback loops, recovery, reflection. Because you can't grow what you don't track. And once your system is strong, you'll begin to feel a shift, a calm confidence. You're not rushing. You're not chasing. You're not guessing. You're executing with precision, with clarity, with peace. Because everything has a place. Everything has a rhythm. Everything has a purpose. That's when life begins to flow. Not perfectly, but powerfully. Because now your life is designed. And design beats chaos. Design beats burnout. Design beats hustle. Design creates margin. Design creates room to think, to breathe, to grow. And now you're not just moving forward. You're building something sustainable, something scalable, something you can carry long term. Because you've traded emotion for execution. You've traded effort for intention. You've traded potential for process. You've heard the principles. You've sat with the truth. And now you stand at the edge of the decision that separates who you've been from who you're becoming. 5 life-altering lessons. Not just to inspire you, but to realign you. To remind you that ultimate success doesn't belong to the most talented or the loudest or the luckiest. It belongs to the ones who choose it daily. You've learned that your standards are the ceiling and the floor of your life. That nothing changes until you stop negotiating with the bare minimum. That you don't rise to what you say you want. You rise to what you accept as normal. When your standards elevate, your identity follows. And with a new identity comes new behavior. You've seen that environment is everything. That you are not just a product of your potential, but of your proximity. Who you're around, what you hear, the energy you absorb. These shape your thinking long before you realize it. And if you want to move differently, you must walk into rooms that make your excuses feel awkward and your growth feel required. You've understood that decisions are everything, that a single moment of clarity followed by courageous action is more powerful than years of hesitation, that you don't need a perfect plan, you need a real commitment. That one decision, fully made, fully backed, fully lived, can change everything. You've realized that it's not what you do once, it's what you repeat. That success isn't built in moments of hype, but in patterns of discipline. That what you do when no one's watching matters more than what you do when they are. That consistency is not glamorous, but it is transformative. And you've seen that systems are not restrictive, they're freeing. That discipline is not punishment, it's protection. That the most successful people are not more motivated, they're more structured. They've designed their days to align with their purpose. They've engineered their life around what matters. And now, so can you. Now the question is, what will you do with what you've just heard? Because knowing these lessons is not enough. Writing them down is not enough. Repeating them to yourself is not enough. The transformation lives in the application. The growth happens in the implementation. These lessons only change your life when they become how you live. When they move from ideas into standards, from inspiration into identity, from motivation into structure. That's how the shift becomes permanent. That's how the future you've imagined becomes inevitable. This isn't about doing everything at once. It's about doing something right now. Choosing one standard to raise, one environment to leave, one decision to make, one behavior to repeat, one system to implement. Success isn't complicated. It's built one layer at a time, one step at a time, one moment of alignment at a time. You've got everything you need. You don't need more time. You don't need more permission. You don't need more motivation. You need a mirror. You need a commitment. You need to stop rehearsing your potential and start honoring it. Because your life is not waiting. The clock is already running. The window is already open. And the longer you wait, the more distant your future becomes. But the moment you act, the moment you lock in these lessons and begin to live them, everything changes. You're not here to stay average. You're not here to blend in. You're not here to wonder what it would have been like if you had just followed through. You're here to lead, to build, to stretch, to succeed, deeply, fully, unapologetically. Not someday. Now.